We've just arrived at the hangar of Sharp Airlines at Essendon Airport in Melbourne, and it's from here that lucky hunters like me get to start their adventure south to the Ferneaux Island group of northeast Tasmania, where the individual islands of Flinders, Cape Barren and Vansittart offer some of the best wing shooting in the southern hemisphere. I'm pleased to say that joining me on this trip is a member of my family. He's also a crucial member of the hunting party, my best mate Angus. Here boy. Good dog. He's an 8-year-old purebred German Shorthaired Pointer, and like all pointers, he loves basically 3 things in life: food, affection, and doing what he was bred for, and that's hunting, and in particular, hunting birds. Shortly, we'll be boarding this metro liner for the short flight south to Flinders Island, where we'll be meeting our host and guide, Chris Rhodes from Rockjaw Tours. We'll then jump in Chris's boat and head over to the historic Vansittart Island, where we'll hunt the rolling hills for a very unique and abundant population of brown quail. Angus, come here, buddy. It's nearly time to go, mate. I hope you're getting excited, because I am. You getting excited? Good dog. Well, it's nearly time to get going. We're off to check in. Here's your boarding pass, mate. Good dog. Get ready to brace yourself, because where we're heading, it is bird dog heaven. Touching down at White Mark, Chris was there to meet us at the airport. The precious whining cargo was unloaded, then we headed straight for the boat ramp. Chris runs guided tours from his home base on Flinders Island and offers quail, peacock, duck and geese hunting, plus fishing charters throughout the summer months from both land and sea for sharks, whiting, flathead and crayfish. After loading our gear onto his impressive 8.5 metre boat, we made for Vansittart, and it wasn't long before we were pulling up at the small jetty to unload. The island's only dwelling is a small but very cosy cottage that would keep us warm and dry. So with the dogs fed and watered, we did the same, then hit the sack in anticipation of a big day ahead. We're into it. I'm excited. A pretty wet morning though. It's finally backed off and Chris has pointed us in the right direction. We're heading up to a bit of a high point. It's going to drop away with the wind in our face. Should be a nice spot to get the dog, get Angus running into it. He's excited too in the back there. He can't wait. This old land is bringing back memories or nightmares. My first ever 4-wheel drive was an old Series 3 Land Rover. Les Hiddens, the bush tucker man, was one of my idols growing up as a kid, particularly in outdoor television. And he used to, you know, tear around the territory in the Cape York in his old ex-army Series 3 Land Rover, so that's what I had. I don't miss it that much. This is looking pretty good. What do you reckon, Angus? This top bank will be us for the next sort of hour or two. We're going to get into it. And then we're going to meet up with Chris a bit later for lunch. He's got some Cape Barren geese on the menu, he reckons. And we'll have a bit of a chat to him about this island. So much history here. These stone walls look fantastic. You can't help but think, you know, it's European, very European feel to it. I'll leave this cool old bus. Time to get going, matey. Yeah. Well, I reckon this is looking as likely a spot as ever. Time to load up the gun and let little man do his thing. Find the birds, buddy. Get on. We just got our first point. Angus is locked on up there. Hopefully, it's the start of lots more to come. We'll get in behind him here, see if we can get a neat flush and a clean shot. The bird's just flushed here to my left. You might have missed it. Working hard trying to find them. I think they've given us the slip, or it might have been that bird. As soon as that tail starts wagging again, it means he's looking. He's Getting closer, I think.
And when the tail wagging stops and he locks up on point, that's when it gets exciting. As you move in on a point, the adrenaline starts to pump, anticipating a lightning fast flush that can come from any direction at any time. My job is to shoot fast and straight. It's never easy, but this one was a clean miss, and it always hurts when you've let your dog down.
Back on here. I think he's locked on down in there. So he's got a bird right under his nose.
With no flush and Angus pointing then moving up and repointing, it usually means the cunning birds are on the run. In this case, a dog will get enough fresh scent to strike a point, but actually be a long way behind the quail, so a shot doesn't present. However, a good pointer will always work it out in the end. With their incredible sense of smell, it's fascinating to watch the dogs interpret precisely how fresh a scent is, then use their instincts to try and outthink the birds and whether they should stalk closer or lock up on point.
They just bunk it in under these wet tussocks, I think. He's trying to flush them out. It's a real carpet. I think they're running underneath it. Good dog. Got to get one to lift. Oh, I was just behind that one. This is very tough. I'm used to hunting stubble quail where it's pretty open. You generally get a good lift, but as you can see, I was literally right on that bird. So getting steady in a 180 degree flip. Yeah. Chris has got the island on a bit of a rotation system with his burns, which keeps the feed fresh, burns off all the old tussock and keeps the younger stuff coming through. We've been soldiering on through there in that taller, thicker stuff. And as you can see, the birds have been running through it. Later on, today or even tomorrow when we get out with Chris's more experienced dogs, he's spoken about how they work together and kind of try and box the quail in, kind of like sheepdog style, if you like. And that's what we might need. Angus isn't used to that kind of stuff, and he's struggling, as I am, with these cheeky quail as they're running off under the tussock to get them to sit and flush. In this more open, burnt ground here, there's probably a better chance that they'll sit in the tussock rather than expose themselves running across the open ground. So we'll give it a shot. Hopefully, we might get a better flushes. I might be able to hit some. Good dog. Go and find the birds.
Back out in the tussock, Angus was casting across the wind, searching for the scent of brown quail. He was working hard and pointing well, but the cunning birds were difficult to flush and kept running ahead of us. I'd already missed a couple, which sucks, as the reward for Angus is seeing the bird fall and getting the retrieve. He soon locked up again on point, so I gave him the command to move up and flush the quail.
Good boy, sneak up. Well, now it's official. I'm letting the team down. That was a bad miss. That was a really good point from Angus. He held solid. I was able to push him up and get the bird to flush, but I missed it. It broke my side, so an absolute shocker. I've got to straighten this barrel out on this gun and start putting some of these birds down, or he's going to pack up and leave me and go and hunt with Chris, I reckon.
I needed some time to rethink my shooting, so we headed back for lunch and Chris cooked up an amazing feed of seared Cape Barren goose breast from birds shot with clients back over on Flinders. With duck season just finishing, we were in for another treat, as on the menu for dinner, he'd planned a meal of slow-cooked black ducks shot off the dam below the cottage. Stuffed with marmalade and capsicum, they were then put in the camp oven, where they were left to simmer away while we caught up for a chat before the afternoon hunt. Stone walls, graveyards, shipwrecks. There's obviously a pretty unique history here that I'm told dates back to the early 1800s.
Yes, well, this would have been one of the islands that the first sealers from Sydney came and harvested seals in the early 1800s, and they would have camped on the other side of the island where all the seals would have come ashore. Then they went into subsisted farming here in 1816. They grew 20 tonnes of potatoes in the paddock in front of us, and there was full-time residents here from about that time.
You were born and bred local, growing up just around the corner here, surrounded by hunting and fishing. It must have been a pretty interesting childhood.
Yeah, it was very interesting growing up with a father that that just loved his hunting and fishing. He was also a mutton birder that harvested mutton birds from when he returned from the Second World War. Growing up as a kid, as you can imagine, there was 4 seasons.
Yeah.
There was the duck season, the mutton bird season, the quail season and the fishing season.
The Ferneaux Islands are locally known as the capital of brown quail hunting, but what makes Vansittart Island so unique?
Vansittart's very unique in as much as it's got no feral cats or feral predators here to prey on the quail. We've also reduced the stocking rates over here so that there's more food for the quail, and we selectively burn, so it's habitat management, so it's not all the one habitat. We actually patch burn every year so that you've got some open areas where the quail can feed, and then the thicker areas where the quail can actually have better protection and breed.
Chris's management of the island and its quail population is a fine example of hunting and conservation, and after all the bird talk, we were keen to get back into it. This time we'd be hunting over Chris's dogs, and he explained how they work when hunters come to the island but don't have their own dogs.
My dogs will pretty much work for anybody,
Yep.
and especially the older dogs like Louise, and the 2 younger dogs, Patience and Prudence. They will actually honour the older dog's point, and they'll work up on the quail, and then one of them will break around and go around to stop the quail running away from you.
Now that's where we struggled this morning, which was really different for me in that open ground of stubble. Generally the birds run a long way and you see them, or they hold right tight and break. But these ones, with the tussock folded over and being quite wet, they were getting away underneath. So take us through the dogs here. You've got a mix of setters and retrievers, is it?
This is Midnight, the flat-coat retriever,
Yep.
and he very rarely misses a bird. This is Prudence, and she's 8 months old. And this is the matriarch of the pack is Louise. She's 10.5 years old.
And they're all English setters.
And they're English setters, and this is Patience. Because it's taken a lot of patience to get Patience to where she is at the moment.
All right, so what's the plan to get started here, mate?
What we'll do, we'll walk down here to catch the breeze, and then we'll find birds out in this more open country, and then we'll work into some of the thicker country and show you how the dogs perform.
Very good. And Chris has straightened out this bend in my barrel, hopefully. So a bit better luck than this morning.
I can only put the birds in the air.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, then the rest is up to me.
Setters are the speedsters of the gun dog world, and the fast, agile dogs were flat out casting back and forward searching for quail. With Midnight the retriever close at hand, I was happy to hang back and watch as Chris moved in on the setter's points and gave us an excellent display of top-class shooting.
That is a brown quail.
Well, that was a good little session. That was interesting to see it all come together. The dog, which is the one that comes around the front?
Patience.
Patience. Interesting to see the other 2 dogs set or honour each other's point, and then Patience round the front, trapping them in. And you had a good little bevy of birds there. 2 down, you reckon? You got the other one? Yep. First shot. And then a real ripper purling off to the right. And there we have one of these elusive little guys.
Vansittart brown quail.
Fantastic.
Walking the tussock, it was awesome to watch Chris's dogs work as a team, and his crack shooting meant the birds were finally starting to fall. I was keen to get in on the action, but it seemed that every bird that broke my side had its afterburners on and I couldn't even get close. The dogs kept up the hard work and Chris was red hot, pulling off some great shots. But as for me, well, my shocker continued, with this effort providing plenty of amusement for Chris and the cameraman.
There you go. Oh! How good do you want it? That little thing up on the back is a safety catch.
The next bird was a perfect example of just how tricky they are to shoot. This quail pulled an impressive manoeuvre to escape Midnight's hungry mouth and even beat Chris's dead eye. I was determined to bring it home for the hard-working Angus, and after all the searching, he eventually sniffed me out a slow one.
Victory! I finally hit one. What a relief. I finally got one. Haven't disgraced myself. After quite a few misses now, probably coming up to nearly 10, finally connected with my first Vansittart brown quail. And I won't go hungry tonight. We're just about out of light at the end of our first day here on Vansittart. A bit of a frustrating one for me, but a very fun and exciting one. I was finally able to make amends there and connect with one of these very tricky and very fast brown quail. I've brought 2 shotguns with me on this trip, and the first one I've used today has been all about tradition. This is the Beretta 690, and it's a successor, if you like, to the Silver Pigeon, the much loved Silver Pigeon. And you'd class this gun as a sporter or a hybrid, a bit of a crossover between hunting and trap. You've got a 500-year-old tradition with Beretta of handmade craftsmanship out of Italy, and it definitely shows with a beautiful gun like this one. One of the main points of difference on the 690 is its eco extractors or eco ejectors. And what it means is when you break the shotgun, you've got the ability to change out between having the empty cartridges ejected or the option to extract them yourself. So when you're in the field like this or on a swamp hunting ducks, you don't necessarily want your cartridges flying out and having to pick them up. So you can switch out via a screw and have the option to pick them out yourself. The 690 has a self-tightening forend, so you won't lose that tension over years of use. You've got the beautiful detailed engraving here, all done by hand by the Beretta craftsman. And apart from that, smooth classic lines of a very traditional and simple shotgun. Good dog. Righto.
Back at the cottage, the air was filled with the sweet aroma of slow-cooked duck. Combined with a plate of mash, veggies and gravy, it was a perfect winter feast for these happy hunters. And as for the dogs, well, they were pretty happy too. For this hunt, I'd be shooting the very stylish and modern Benelli 828. This gun is like the Lamborghini of Italian shotguns and boasts innovative design features such as its ultra-lightweight construction and extremely low recoil. The 828 also features a carbon fibre rail, a dropout trigger system and a fully adjustable stock. It sure was an impressive gun and I was keen to get it into the field.
We've got a much better day for it this morning. Beautiful clear day and no wind. Yesterday was pretty wet when we started and the dogs had a good rest. He was pretty knackered last night, but we're both raring to go. We're going to head over to the other side of the island, right round and hunt up on this big high point. That's not a bad backdrop for a hunt, is it? Beautiful. We're starting up here where one of the guys, Tom, who's staying with us as well, had a hunt with his setter yesterday on his own. And he found it a bit easier to get the birds to set and hold, unlike that situation we were having yesterday where Angus was struggling a bit with the birds running out on him. So we're going to make our way round into the breeze up above the coast here, and we're set for a busy morning. Get on, find the birds. All right, here we go. Good dog. That is a great way to start the day. That gives me lots of confidence after yesterday, first clean shot. Not the smoothest retrieve from Angus, a bit of frustration I think there, but a bird in the hand. And he's on point down here again now. We'll go and get into it. Oh. Oh, straight down the hill. Oh, I got him. Took our time on a retrieve with that one, but the dog always finds them in the end if you persevere. These birds are running. I just got my first look at one, seeing it through the tussock. So hard to pick up. But Angus is working this out now. As of yesterday, he'd set and sit on the first point and the birds would get away from him. He's really hunting them out now and trying to pounce on them and get them to lift. It's good to see.
With my shooting drastically improving and Angus working really well, the morning couldn't get much better. But we now had the breeze behind us, so decided to head up over the hill so we could walk back into the breeze and work along the productive edge of the high plateau. After casting Angus off, he was straight back into the birds.
Got him. Good dog. Yes, yes, there he is. That's a rare connection on the second shot for me. Good looking bird, this one. You can actually get quite a decent mount out of these if they're not too damaged when you hit them.
Moving on to the steeper side of the hill, we were working perfectly into the wind, and from Angus's body language, it seemed like the quail were thick on the ground, but they just didn't want to flush. He worked hard trying to get them to set and lift, but it took a lot of work. Finally, when a bird flushed and I dropped it with a clean shot, frustration got the better of him. Instead of fetching and retrieving it, well, he decided it was time for an early lunch, and he earned himself a red card. After a stint in the sin bin, my little mate was back on point, and I was finally starting to show some form with the gun, swinging ahead of the little brown rockets. This time, Angus remembered his training, displaying some fine gun dog work, being staunch on point, steady to the flush, and retrieving the bird to hand.
Good dog. Good boy. That's how you should be doing it, mate.
I was definitely liking the feel of the Benelli 828, and with its minimal weight, it certainly was a joy to carry and a joy to shoot in the steeper, rougher terrain. The sides of the plateau were proving to be a hot spot for the quail that day. As we started to work the thicker tussock back toward the vehicle, we got into coveys of birds with multiple flushes that make for fast action and always get the adrenaline pumping.
Good dog. Good boy. A nice drake bird. That was a really good sequence. I've been encouraging Angus to flush them. It's much better to be encouraging your dog to get up in them, push them out, rather than having your dog jumping on them and spooking them. Yeah, this is good hunting in here, really good fun.
With it now into the early afternoon, Angus was just about out of batteries, so we headed back to start cleaning the birds. Chris showed me his quick and easy method for dressing out quail, which first involves using a pair of snips to cut off the feet, wings and head. Then he skins them as opposed to plucking them, which is far easier, cleaner and quicker. Under the careful supervision of a proud pointer, we finished off the rest of the birds in preparation for the evening meal of Chris's signature dish, brown quail risotto. With a self-imposed bag limit on the island of 15 birds per day, I still had a few to get before mine was filled, so with a couple of hours of light remaining, I left Angus to recover while Chris and I headed out for a shoot over his dogs. The setters were fresh and keen as ever and got us straight into the action. I was now back in the groove, swinging through and shooting straight, so I picked up a few more, as did Chris, before the sun finally slipped away and called us home. Again that evening, the cottage air was filled with a mouth-watering aroma as Chris pressure-cooked the quail, then from a tasty stock, cooked up and served up, easily one of the best risottos I've ever eaten. On our final morning, the weather crashed our plans for a quick hunt, so we packed up and headed back to Flinders Island before it got any worse.
We've had to make a pretty quick dash this morning. Bass Strait's served it up. As you said, it is winter in Bass Strait, and this is what it can do. This is probably pretty tame, really, though, is it?
From this direction, it's pretty tame. When it blows from the west, it can be a lot worse.
Fair enough. Well, it's been a fantastic weekend. Unfortunately, it's come to a close all too quickly. But I've got to say, your hospitality's been first class. The hunting has been world class. I've loved every minute of it. And for Angus and myself, it's been pretty tough with pretty dry and sparse quail seasons over on the mainland the last few years. But there's only one thing left to do, and that's organise this when we can get back.
It's not a problem. It's been a pleasure having you.
Well, thanks again, mate.
Maroka 30 is the proud hunting clothing and equipment sponsor of Beyond the Divide, custom designed for our local conditions and uniquely Australian. Ask for it in store at your local gun shop or check out the full range at maroka30.com.au.